Hello again, word lovers, and today we're having a slight parenthesis. Etymology, strictly speaking, is the study of the history of words, but today we're going to look at the history of some of the symbols that we use, mostly in mathematics. So, open brackets, who invented those? The round brackets apparently were invented by medieval scholar Erasmus, substituting the chevron shape that was used before them. But then we're lost in the sands of time. Anyway, here we are inside some brackets. Let's begin with equals. This seems like a logical way of representing one thing is like another thing. It was invented by Robert Recorde in 1557. Let's make it more interesting. I'll describe the symbol and see if you can tell what it is. So this symbol was invented by medieval monks. It's a very old symbol, not exactly mathematical, but very useful today. They were tired of writing the Latin word toward, add, so they started to write it just as an A and looping the tail around it. As usual, that's one theory. I think you know what I'm talking about now. It's the at sign, which I first encountered reading Old English texts, where it would be used in the sense of 3 meals at 2 pence per meal is 6 pence. And that's not an impossible etymology either, as that use has been around since at least 1536. And there was a Florentine merchant called Francesco Lapi who used this little sign as a shortcut for amphorae, large clay jars in which he put his wine. Now, the next symbol is definitely mathematical, first used, as far as we know, by William Jones in the year 1706. I think if I say that before this time, approximations were quite common, such as 22 over 7, 355 over 113, rather than its true number, which we now know to be 3.14159265358979323846264338. You'll have guessed that he was the first person to use the Greek symbol pi to represent what we all call pi today. The next symbols were invented at the end of the 15th century by German mathematicians. That's as clear as we can be. Before, they were using simply the letters P and M, PP doubled up often, and MM for plus and minus, until they hit on this idea of the cross and the dash, which are so prevalent today. While we're with these signs, the old multiplication sign was simply a dot, and the use of the X for multiplication is traced to William Orchard. But if we dig further, we can find it in use earlier than that. As usual, don't believe everything you read. A few nice little symbols now. The 8 on its side for infinity was from J. Wallace, 1655. Swiss mathematician Euler was a dab hand at inventing symbols. He's responsible for I being the symbol for square root minus 1 and for the transcendental number E, among others. Here come the philosophers. The integral sign was first used by Leibniz, as far as we know, and Descartes, when writing about algebra, was the first to use what we now normally use to represent the unknown letters, that is to say X, Y, and Z. So much for signs, not a single word, as numbers 1 to 9 were covered. In fact, 1 to 10 were covered in the video about pi, but we never talked about the symbol for 0. Now, I've read a whole book about this. It's a complicated story. However, very recent evidence seems to suggest that the oldest recorded 0 symbol is from about 220 AD. Now, as for the use of the 0 and what it represents and the decimal placings and all that, that is really beyond the remit of an etymology book. It's a fascinating story, though. It takes place mainly in India at the beginning. Now, the word 0, which is what interests us, came into our language via the French zéro, from zero, which would have been a contraction of zévero. This also took place in Venice, originally from cifr, which was the Arabic And from there we're going to get cipher, meaning a code, again due to this really twisted history. But the Arabic language itself used that to translate the Sanskrit word, which I don't know what it was, nor do I know what concept cipher has in order to make that transition. However, it was adapted into English, first on use 1598. The whole etymology of nothing is another story we might go into. A thing, go on, I've started now, that a thing originally was an Icelandic word which meant a complaint that you brought to the parliament. I think the thing was the council, and the complaints that people brought came to be known as things. What thing have you got today? And thing just generalised out of there.